Tangi lodu teni tenja nyela nanda raseme chenye dungu jije ziji nyigi tuka lepanzem kanda sibe suna mari muzelo tunye jisewe Trotso gona uchi tse nyela chuchu yangde sum Trota chedo nyemo nyemo legi charo jose Mare mese dunye nyungu chinye juze rendi alam Dene tashi saju tala yune rizo yese tuku Chuta chuta yuni ni talu mese jambe yamalu Om Arapasanadi Om Arapasanadi Om Arapasanadi Chegi Kera Gusegi Tamu Dimo Mambarasene Kada Deju Shonlo Dobayi Lodu Bobe Lama Tsudu So Continue with the short mandala on page 16. Sanji Oki Joye Melora Rira Benji Nide Gemade Sanje Shilu Mele Bohayi Chuku Nanda Jinla Chua Jetsu Nama Dhamma Jinandi Chuku Kala Jise Jinde Chita Zambe Lüde Zemala Sabi Chigi Jawa Lusu Continue with the refuge prayer on page 22. Sanje Chodang Soti Chonang La Chanju Badu Dani Kyamsoye Tagi Jijun Yebe Somangi Chola Benje Sanje Lumarsho Sanje Chodang Soti Chonang La Chanju Badu Dani Kyamsoye Tagi Jijun Yebe Somangi Chola Benje Sanje Lumarsho Sanje Chodang Soti Chonang La Chanju Badu Dani Taji Jizun Jive Sonangi Chola Benje Sanje Lumarsho Nagarjuna's letter to friend. As we are on the verse 9, so we will be discussing verse 9. Verse 9. 시부디 대샤샤비 이렇게도 이 비자도 대샤샤비 이렇게도 예 비자도 이 시딩이 싸워요 그래도 비자도 캐베이 수거래 진짜 캐베이 수거래 자 말해 거기에 뭐야 수수께 안에 수수께 뭐래 안 했어 안 해. So, have you guys read the previous verses that we have discussed? Do you have any ideas what kind of practice that is recommended? Anyone who has read and thought of practicing or contemplating it?
It's really extreme, not extreme, but it's very fine line. Things to walk.
Maybe you are too busy, so you haven't had a chance to read.
No, it's what I was saying was it's very concise. No wiggle room. He's got good advice, no slippery.
My mind needs a little training.
So it reads like Lam Rim, stages of the path, a complete practice.
So this letter to the friend by Nagarjuna actually encapsulates entire teachings of the Buddha. It's a really precise instructions. The instruction actually given to his friend is a written letter. It's not an instruction that he just gave his friend. It's in the form of giving a teaching, but rather he wrote a letter to his friend, King Surabhibhadra. And so it is more oriented, the teaching is more oriented towards giving the advice and more convenience to practice by the lay people. Doesn't really, as just more about this, because at the time the letter is directly towards his king, who is not a monk, who is not an ordained member. So therefore, he has written this text to his king friend, to convenient for him to practice. Being as a lay person, how they can, carry their practice of Dharma, being a lay person. So this is also known as the Shastra that suggested based on the tradition of the lay people, because it is just given to the teachings that is written by Nagarjuna and primarily given to the lay people, including not only this Nagarjuna's letter to friend, but also the precious card, Ratnamala, by Nagarjuna is also, directed towards the lay people, how to practice in a complete form of teachings of the Buddha, beginning from the teachings of beginning relying upon spiritual teacher all the way to the state of enlightenment. It's all given in that particular text, which actually encapsulates.
디나라 고블루르비 잡아치쇼 잡아다와 아니지 김반지 아니 리드를 두고 잡았는데 사원님의 소용 말했을 때나
So if you look at the text, you will find that Nagarjuna has never suggested those practitioners to go to isolation and go to retreat or, cultivate detachment from one's family. So it is not suggested in this particular text.
제가 디다 말한조 참말로게 남지 초변나는 냠len 치투야게 남지 초변나야 냠len 치투야게 아니 된다고 장장했어.
So this is very cohesive instructions, given by Nagarjuna to the kings of the Bhattara, as we talked about earlier, who is not a monk. So if you look at this text and follow the practice, and practice that is something that's very convenient, so that you can carry this practice on our day-to-day life. It's not something that's very extreme, it's something that's very, difficult. Rather, we can carry those practice as a lay people, lay person's day-to-day practice, so presented in a very cohesive way.
당아서 지지고거디 강라 파다 마다 최바 이스리디 창지 로베 제바라 대다라 주 잡아 제바도 잡아를 기루바다스 레말라야 투리 기루바다스 지지디 디레시 다미 강다시기 기루와 아니 미순다시 이나야 아니 라기 파 제다리기 아니 제바집에 파 아니 마 대졸라야 아니 최바스리 좀 봐라 다 대졸라 야 구샵체네 되네 대졸라야 지 참조 야보지기 강사딜라야스 디데 강사딜라야 아니 간데지로서 리디 창지 로변제 바바스와 디데베 강사디 아니 창바다 제바레스 로변다 제바레스 창바다 제바스디 디 강사디게 아니 수수비 파마나야 아니 지 구샵다 델라닝으로 야보제자 아니 그 대왕의 선음야 떡침부지 페이지 대라 강사들라야 아니 지 단다 깔조 경매 하도 속에 아니 콜라야 조틸리제 콜라 승부에서 상받았지 아니 대답에 강사대 아니 로변다 제 봐서와 코랑게 생나라야지 가서 그래 대대게 개와 지 파마라야 구셔지야다 대대 야보질려는데 아니 코랑게 지 가서 그래 다 semnana kiwe chawa tende ji piwe de zombala ane lobyon da je bares ane tendebe kansa dege pamala che tendege kusha yobo je pamala niguri yobo je shawa dege sunange debu de tsetare tongju tse de korama ya mi chamalo ge kola ya ji ya dora da ya da kola ji ta tende yobo sene ya dora da ya da ane 진대진의 거라 세대가라 안에 체인이다 야보용 그래서 파마로 최고 제자주 대교가 되게 수남 야직 배 대원은 미참말로 기지 미나로 좀 별내가 세자 제 다리 통주 유교래야 안에 코지 가서 그래 미참말로 되어라다 사지 차로 그래서 아니 다 되네 가서 되네 마신이 끼워 치마나야 되게 파마로 최고 제가 되게 수남이 아니 하다 미고만 더 그래서 어디 지지도 된다.
So this verse 9, if we read it, it says, any family in which the father and mother are honored will be together with Brahma and together with teachers. They will become renowned for honoring them. And afterwards, as well, will attain rebirth of higher status. So now it's very clear if you look at here. Anyone who actually honored, helped, making offerings, taking care of one's parents, as well as many other beings that is involved in here, teachers, brahmins, and so forth, and monks and so forth. And then such a person will be honored and become renowned. That whoever follows this practice. And then if individual who is a very good practitioner of this, as is mentioned in this verse, will then attain the rebirth of higher status, or the three higher status, human, God, and demigod. Because those practices are the actual cause for gaining a high rebirth in higher rebirths, rebirth in three high realms. So therefore, if whoever follow this practice by honoring and taking care of their parents and making an offerings and so forth, will then accumulate a very special kind of merit or the virtue that will become a cause for taking rebirth in high realms.
Di nana tinte si sungsha, ane di tanda chiding nana tinte si sungsha towa, tene ngaranzu miki thongsa kora la ya rangi pama nyi di nana ama di ta chinchimbo kazi ji yinpa di ta ngaranzu thongshimba takara resi, peyi ma si chinchimbo rwa, ama tawa ina thongbo, tene lula, tawa kuzi lula kyude di ta tisa ngaranzu pa ta di thonggo dowa, ji susu lyogu nana bugu de kedi du gamne kazi ji yumi. Tende ma tse tsane da simji shenda da ma ranga zu misigi digi da lo chik tse ji susu rango chun tungu marwa. Simji shenda ina tene nima kashi ne rango tun rukdwa. Azo mi tia lo ne lo tu ne tene kale jagu du da ana ama ke kale kya kande jagi yumi de. Tene nga ranzo tongju yung gyuri ziredwa sa. Miki tongju riji.
So it is really worthwhile practice of honoring and repaying the kindness of one's parents, particularly your mother. Think about the mother who has been taking care of you right from at the moment that the mother conceived you. At the very conception of the child, mother will take care of they think of taking care of the child and being oneself in the mother's womb for 9 months, even more than that sometimes. And then how much mother had, sacrificed her own comforts for their child. And so it is, when we think about the hardships that are exerted by one's mother is something that is inconceivable. So therefore it is worthwhile to recall or recollect the kindness of the mother who has been so kind to oneself. Not only the mother that we are talking about this lifetime, but also the mother of past lifetime as well. The countless beings who have been one's mother in the past. So therefore, it is worthwhile to engage in the practice of actually honoring them and taking care of one's mother and so forth will really become an actual spiritual practice.
Tanda pijin nana ya ane ngaranzo tosi kawpyo singwari kamba laba shi tsuzi yutubi kala ya ane nima chikla ama ki so kyatamba kyobe katin yusi tindis yores ti tamaran tuyola nema na jen ama chuzi chik tili mewi na ane ti kapdela ane ngaranzo piji chik sagi yu na ta chikla chonru yu na kariche na so shoya ki jiga ziris.
So as we become a toddler, it is to say that mother has been kind to oneself, even to protecting our life. Even one day for 100 times of life-threatening, situation that has been protected by one's mother. Even in one day, even for the one day, she has been protecting us 100 times of life-threatening situation. So therefore, if you think about those, isn't that worthwhile to repay their kindness and think of their kindness?
Ribet zugi di jazukala ya cheme jilama kondon tine dena la korang ko gonga de tangje de yuksha ne korang tön ro resi do ani ko gonga de maria khande chigi yoresna amaki singena ne gonga de zo jesuna na de singena ne temba jesuna gonga de zo pugu ma chawa je rutu resi ameki temba ge majibe nana ani pugu de zo maria ne gonga chane gonga ne pugu tön ani tugresi tilis siga tamji dum no juve ro juve de zo 아니 자저점나 야 체메지라 아마기
아시고
공동도 그지 근데나라 공화당 아니 아마트는 그래서 수준은 뭐냐네 되네 아마기 제반에 공화도 제가 아마기 생각나는 제가 안 공화도 그래도 그랬어 아마기 생각나 제반나라 공화도 대이나 아니 거기서 아마 말이나 공화도 야미네 아니 보고도 돼안 그랬어다 그래서 아마기 제발 거라니 되게 세월에 되게 야되나
So I just said, if you look at animals such as the turtle, right? When the turtle come out of the oceans and being in the sand, where they lay eggs, and then the eggs are on their own, whether they the hatches or not. But according to certain research, which was saying that if the mother can still remember where she actually, where the eggs are hidden, even though the mother is not around, mother will not go there and take care of their offsprings. As long as she remembers where the eggs are laid, then the eggs will begin to hatch. Otherwise, if the mother will forget where the eggs are hidden, the mother doesn't even remember the eggs where that she had laid egg, then the eggs will not hatch, but it will be rotten. Says this is theory.
세상다 나도 정말 다디 거기 남는 시사게 순서 되나야 안에 마르싱가야 안에 아마 게 칸데 이마지 디가라 정말로 겐사데 여레스 아마 가지치부터 되지레스 이나야다 나랑도 집에 나랑도 정말로다 나라야 아마 요 말에서 안다 나도 정말 베지베지 집어도 차도 이지레스
So I'm pretty sure that you all are familiar with the importance of practicing recalling all, recognizing all sentient beings as one's mother. That is, extensively elaborated in the teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa, stages to the path to enlightenment, which you are all familiar with. So for this doesn't require much explanation to it, but it is worthwhile to again remind time and again of how important it is to remember or recognizing sentient beings as one's mother. So, right from my childhood, for me, I lost my mother.
팅상 지 미테소가 아마도 근데 티드도 안에 지 생나 멍게를 지도스 이나야다 가서 그래 아마 유드네 개치도 요말에 안에 생나 도스 교벌을 지도스
As a young child, haven't been able to do anything to my, mother who actually gave birth to me. I haven't been able to repay, even to thinking of repaying her. I've been not even recognizing her kindness, and I've lost. So something that again make me go a little bit emotional when I think about it, because I lost her when I was very, very young.
어딘데 이다 가서 그래 답이지 대사전 다 지지 주거디 주거디를 전화 야서
So let's go to verse 10.
아니 지지 주거디 당가랑도 디 디나라 니네 순서 니네를 배워다 다디 티지 수종들의 세다 충분 치버 준다네 창다 뒤면세라 차바다 매대 토라 가다 루다다 가다 티웨 개발 남방신스 데레타 나조 지단년에 시대전 발이야 잡도 중하다 기본이긴 하네 kim박이 레야가 동바지레스 아니 다데디 년에서디 제나 kim박이 레야 동바지 다디가라야디 가라야 티지 수종스네 년내게 레미나 메지직 송야체데 년내게 레미나 다 티지 수종 동바차베이나 아니 니마치 지부카자 테리 쇼베네네 안산지 쇼베 니마샤디 파다 디두주 디파라데바 근데 티지 수종세 아니 송야데 게마도 매우제 대간에 티버치 잔주가 생긴 심바체 데레체는 티지 수종데 렌투비 유나 페마시 펜여체보 송야게 두주디 동동 데레체네 야보시지 유레스
So then it says, when one give up causing harm, thieving, sexual activities, lying, alcohol, and attachment to eating when it is not time, delight in high beds and sweet songs, dance, and all sort of jewelry. And this actually suggests of taking the lay vows, or 8 lay vows that you are committing, you're refraining from 8 types of negativities, that or 8 vows or 8 types of actions that are harmful to our own practice. And this verse again, these precepts can be two types. One precept is just only for the lay people. And once you have taken this precept as a lay precept, then you will be observing your entire life. But if you take this as a Mahayana precept, then it is one need to observe this precept for 24 hours of time. So it entirely depends on the receiver, whoever is taking the precepts. If one is taking these precepts with the motivation of bodhicitta, and this will become Mahayana precepts. So this will last for 24 hours. And this Mahayana precept is something that is very, very beneficial for our practice. It actually emulates our precepts and lay a very strong foundation for a development of our spiritual realizations.
이 돈바들렌디 아니 돈디보다 당보디다 로병고 군드네 랭고고 요레스 근데 니버 숨바체네 아니 수수기 나라야 아니 토왕게 구데게 드네야 랭게 예나 되게 요레스 엔리야게 두즈디 쇼베 추즈나와제라 딘델레나 되게 요레스
So this taking such precept is something very convenient for us as a lay people. Of course, if you have never received this precept in the beginning, one need to receive these precepts from the teacher who actually have this transmission. You can receive, and then from next time onwards, one can practice this precept and receive this precept one by oneself, being in the presence of Buddha's image, or being in front of altar where the Buddha's statue is arranged, and you yourself then knee down. First, of course, make a prostrations and knee down and take these precepts.
Oh,
Sorry. At the time, the time of taking this precept in the morning around dawn, you can, this is the time where you can take this precept.
이 송야디 다 계즈 잠깐 계즈 보지 그래서 대 세와스도 아니 속죄바 대니가 디 티지스 줄레면이가 대 아니 삼신도 소제 좀 말스 메다 소자 가롱기 총근스도 다 마진리 지 미기 아니 라마마에 미 중근나서 받아서 케토바다 다네 유튜브에 렘발아서 받는데 지치고 말했어 엔티퍼스도 좀 발라야 다 대니가 김바이비나 아니 팀장마 송제 되고야 내려와 김바이비나 팀장마 송제 되고 주연당스도 좀 발라야 다 주연이 지 맞죠 신고고 다야가 특들이 지 맞죠 보세 창스도 좀 발라야 말아도 다 뉴그로 와 르다 셈니가 녀바지 보게 되게 차라리 대난에 안에 지금 양에서 타마다 되게 여러 데 그래서 예다사 되도 어디서지 정말 니샤 지리 방고야지 뒤메세 수리점발이야 뒤마 임베세들라 다팀 담배왕도다 뒤배왕도 제법 니유래 다팀 지 로버트 것도 재밌나 쇼자다 니공 칼라 추지준이기 나라야 아니 대 니공기 셀라데 치 아니 되네 공다 아니 칼라마사와데 뒤명이세 파방바데레스 다팀 담바데 제비나 아니 니공 칼라마도 쇼자라 요마레 니공 칼라데 지부세 안데네 바 칼라마사와데 데레스 시
시제
세 중 지버즈 장 뒤메세 데리샤 총총샤
정도. So there are 8 types of precepts and 8 types of, in other words, activities that one need to refrain from. And those are very clearly mentioned in this root text itself by saying causing harm, which is taking the life of others, not only causing harm, but killing, in other words, taking the life of others, which is then thieving, it says sexual activities. For the lay people, one should not engage in sexual misconduct, in other words. That is what is meant. And then lying. And attachment to alcohol. So in the text it says alcohol, but this is not only confined to alcohol, but rather it's all intoxicants. All this, something that makes oneself, abnormal by taking those kind of, drugs or whatever it is. So one should not be, consuming all of those intoxicants. Any kind of intoxicants must be abandoned. And then attachment to eating when it is not time. It is untimely meal, in other words. So when it comes to the untimely meal, there are 2 kinds. One is very strict observation of this vow, who can only eat a lunch, not other than lunch, no breakfast, no dinner. It's a very strict way of observing. And there's another one is a little bit lighter, where you can have your breakfast and lunch, but after lunch you should not eat after lunch. So that is what is meant by untimely meal, or it says eating when it is not time, it is not the proper time. That's
지난해에 당근에 고랑대 자외 팀전에 안에 속죄바 안에 마진바네 바 안에 티바 안에 주용기 되게 자외 팀들이스 다 지난해 zawe tim le ba nyambar chi gi ane yela gi shidi khares na da lusin changla nyoba chi gi luda sempa nyoje ane zawe tim le ba gyonsho ya nyoba yidu ane di chang de che ende gala ya ane ji lusim nyingala ya pa ji kasure nyoba chi gi tyuma ibe kase ane lusim nyinga ni gi wang do ba da nyobdo chaya de gi tyuma ibe kase sawe ne de yongin da tyuma ibe kase de ba 방고야 와 디니디체 걔네 아니 메덴토와스디 티지 수준 렘베 카도텔라야 아니 메덴토와텔라 니유레다 메덴토와스디 베직야 톰보트데로 와 추카라야 토와 톰보트네 가라야 녀야다 아니야 녀사데기 베지 가서 규레디 베지 뭐치라고 tin데 소샤뇨 치톰보 아니 녀제도 베 고젠자고 베 tin데 소샤뇨이나 양 되게 수술에 나제지기 나제지비 주 메데톰보데 방고에서 메데토스야 될야 니유의 축축하는 토와 차스나는 토와체 아니 양지 rindache 보데 차스나 될라 토스기레스.
So then the first 4 precepts, such as causing harm, taking sexual activities, and lying, those 4 are said to be the root precepts. Those are the root precepts. And the others, alcohol, attachment to eating when it is not time, delight in high rates and sits, are the secondary precepts. But those secondary precepts are actually cause of degenerating the root for those four root cause, for the 4 root precepts, such as taking life of others, taking sexual activities in lying. So then here it says, delight in high beds and sits. So delight in high beds can be understood in 2 terms. There are 2 ways of understanding this high beds. High bed is another one way of understanding this high bed is one should not have a bed that is higher than 1 cubic feet. That is considered to be a high bed. And another high bed here refers to a bed that is made out of very precious metals, precious materials, such as copper or gold or silver and so forth. Because the reason why is because when you have this high bed, the bed that is very high, it also becomes a cause of generating pride. There's a possibility of having this, and particularly if one's bed or seat that is made out of, very high qualities such as gold, silver, and so on and so forth. And then this will definitely, invokes our negative thoughts, particularly of pride, that one might think that I am the one who is sitting on this throne, or I'm the one who is sitting on this seat that is made out of silver, gold, and so forth. So this is for this reason why in this verse it's saying that one must refrain from using or being delight in using high beds and seats.
아니 대가라야 남이기 주 좋아 남이기 주치야 아니 다 로다 가르스네 아니 셰다야 아니 셰탑야 강배 셰탑야 저도 다야 디지 수준레 베니가 될래야 르다 셈니가 남이기 집에 줄로다 디니 방고요레스 얘라 다디 tumбади 있어래 아니 대제래야 아니 지야 괜찮다야라고 그러죠 남주마 이베지 괜찮다고 참면 다야라고 해서 청와다야다 아니 르르 괜찮다야 아니 지식 지마시 붙여더야라고 해서 계속 방법이요레스.
So then it says song, dance, and all sort of jewelry. One should refrain from that. the dancing and singing, again, uh, will invokes the mental endurance that actually one becoming more careless and one is not be able to engage or to focus on one's practice, but it actually renders, it enables, it actually becomes a cause for rendering one's mind by listening to those songs and music and dancing and so forth. And once we have taken those vows, particularly that we are all familiar with, the vow that we are familiar is the Mahayana vow that we're all taking, we're all familiar with. Once we have taken those Mahayana vows, is those 24 hours of time, we're committing oneself to not to let ourselves, influenced by mental rendering and mental thinking. Rather, one is committing oneself, having taken those vows, one committing oneself to be able to engage and focus on the practice, not letting one's mind wander elsewhere, but rather, you know, uh, directing inward rather than outward. So therefore, those listening to things and dance will become again impediment for you know observation of our observing our precepts. And then it says all sort of jewelries. One should not wear the jewelries uh, or something very precious jewels, and as well as uh, the ornaments. One should refrain from wearing ornaments.
어딘데베 연락이 송야디 아니 뭔지 디신시버 다좀바 산지 남지 디디기 연락자단데베 소종 제버된 나신 제수 템버체네와 다좀 수준 제수 템체바 승리기 다좀바 남지 산지 중진데 남지 디디 제버 나신체네 연락이 못해다 숨부 이나스 연락이 못해다 숨부 되나 아니 소소기 소종고 동바되다 라와 이나 아니 소종 되줄 하류 이용 와서 아니 된다베 연락 제보 대다던데 소종데 숨바 예미나 아니 지긴치마 아니 되바나 주베 아니 라이를 이동 와라 소바 토바 된데 인자 아니 제보 되지 성부 키랑게 아니 대 소종데 송거리나 아니 소종데 아니 가서 그래 링 다가서 그래 된적이 미 보다 제보다 배배다 아니 개와지만 하루 이동과 된적이 토바 집에 대다나 저러와 지스네 개보되지 선보라 공부를 마 담샤주지레스.
So then in the next verse it says, and tax on these 8 branches that emulate the ethical disciplines of liberated our hearts. This one day precept will bestow on man and woman an attractive body for the desires of God. What it says is, if one is able to observe those vows, regardless of gender, whether being women or men, if one is able to observe these vows, then it says these vows will enable one to take a rebirth in the high realms. So it says high realms, particularly of the desire of God. And then then such precepts, it says, these precepts are taken by the great beings of the past. And so therefore, it is taking these precepts or disciplines, they are liberated and becoming our hearts. Similarly, if one is able to follow the footsteps by taking these precepts, and one will not only gain the rebirth in the high realms of desire realms, you know, Deva realms of it, of desire realm, but also one will be able to liberate oneself from such existence.
我的这身上，他的那里没有嘛的，之前那看到做提起手就写给有了的，提起手就开始练不一不的技能，俺的提不前面手就上上了呀，提那个谁的干谁几个有的是，
So if you are, maybe you're, or I'm pretty sure that you're familiar with the precepts of Mahayana precepts. Once you have taken the Mahayana precepts, and you should be strict to it. You should observe a strict vegetarianism. So vegetarian is needed because you cannot eat non-veg food.
提起手就那也了，
Is anyone taken a Mahayana precepts before?
我的领里头，我的别嘛是可是我的送这节嘛都有嘛的，送的不大的，那送嘛都不得的，早晚你那边都，啊你。
There are 8 types of precepts that one need to observe. It's something that's not difficult at all. If you look at those 8, and this is not difficult to observe. That too is 24 hours of time. If you have taken a minor precept, it lasts for 24 hours of time, which is very easy to preserve.
他看了，管他看了干呀的，天嘛都这个香港做了什么都没这个有嘛的事的。
So maybe not eating dinner may be a little difficult, but it's not that difficult.
给了他把领里有了，
Tawa ling me la.
啊那是，
Tawa ling me na le yijuma tawa chu
啊那是，
me wa ling me. Na se ne ta se na du jian ka na jian le me
啊那，
ko ta ba de sen ta ne ka so ba je ta ne jo wa de sen ta de le cha la ling me.
那是，
Ya ga chi zhe ne tawa li ya ka chi ju.
那是。
Se de tema de se me de.
Je.
Se so ne le do.
是，他的始终都来对比，这当你那个连对怎么了？他的说他个东巴桥的，说是几不个切度，松呀说他个东巴桥的，他的你那个来对，那提进始终来对怎么了呀？三八的，三零三八东巴的松呀的，甚至他们这个切度，那提进始终的东巴的连接是提高了松这的松跟烟天的。 삼바티기 개발의 효율을 그랬어. 당하전 단다 개출은 것도 받아도 상관로다 수수기 타바도야 제도 렘바서서 데데 소다라도 바스기 요랬어. 나 단데디 티지 수준 세고야지 가르스나 배나 개론 것도 받을라 팀 이제가 주서서 요르디 대 마마와 차래 대 티지 수준 야토와 차래 토야 차야 돼 간데스레스나 티지 수준디 300원에 또 채워 다대 또 뭐 뭐지 이런 게 되는데도 이나 300원에 또 채워대 가르스나 개론게 동반데 수수 탈바토야 제도 개론게 동반 시위에서 그 마마와 잘 다들 티제 수준에서 렌드 잡아라 신지 탐지게 된지 치슬람자 근데 그 300원에 빼도 침부 차차랬어.
So then when we were taking these precepts, as we discussed earlier, that it's the motivation is something that's very important. If you're taking those 8 precepts just as a lay precept, then it will just become a precept of Pratimoksha, which is individual liberation precept. It is not as beneficial as taking precepts, Mahayana precepts. So when it comes to the taking Mahayana precepts, your motivation and very purpose of your taking the precept is to attain complete state of enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. So that's a big difference between the motivations, the two motivations. One is just taking precepts to to liberate oneself, which is individual liberation precepts. Another one is, although that's the same precept, but the motivations make one minor precept, another one is just a lay precept. For example, even though the fully ordained precepts that is to be observed, 253 precepts that is to be observed by the fully ordained monks, fully ordained monks. But when it comes to the benefits of this two, if you were to compare the benefits of observing 253 precepts and the minor precepts is far more beneficial than even the fully ordained precept. Because the fully ordained precept is still, belongs to the category of individual liberations. That is just by observing this fully ordained vows is to liberate him or herself from the second existence. Whereas a minor vow is not just limited or confined towards liberation of one's own self, but it enables to broaden one's motivations, benefiting entire sentient beings. And for that purpose, I take this precept to gain state of enlightenment. So therefore, that's a big difference. Even though the fully ordained vows has a greater in number, but when it comes to the beneficial benefits, taking minor precept as more beneficial.
다 되나네, 단다 되나네, 지 말아서 매년 토세에서 어디 배지님만 표현을 가지고 동반들린도 있나 찔러야 나도 개인기 소리나 그러이나 아니 축한다 되게 말하는 남지 수순에서 되는 예발아야 수순에서다 된딘디 통보 임나 되는 대마도 예서 매위나는 이거는 예산은 디 예범이 요 말에서 예범 요즘 말에서 되게 송나서 제가 지난 예산면 다 된데 이제 미지 축하지 마 제가 두고 예서 말에서 남지 수순에 대해서 되나.
So then again here, let's talk about this. Delight in high beds and six. Even though that your bed is a little bit higher than 1 cubic feet, but as long as this is your actual bed, you are using this bed for your entire life. And this is your bed, that is your permanent bed. So it is okay to use that. You're just not just making a new bed for yourself higher than that, because you can use that bed and it will not decline your precepts.
제가 나라도 팀 수야데 개워치망원도 다 되게 두고이나 내가나라 야다 나도 팀 수야데 개천보제 대나래 나바산제고 찌짐제데 미그지보 무츠리데 대 송네 당부 최치하고 고주야 당부 팀 수야데냐 용어도 대나래 나가나라 차샤비나 나가나기 지다 담제다 동바도 수야도 전에 나게 담제다 동바도 양부 송투비 이메이나 세다리 고음접질 두번치마도 나 개월 쭉 천절이야 안에 야 송주고 고반 도비야 된데기 레사게 있는데 요래서 세다리 나게 담지도 돈바도 좀 마송나나 베디지 참인주로 공정을 가르 겨위나 뭐를 주는 요 말에서 가르에서 남기데 지 담지도 돈바도 좀봐 마송바체 대샤나 아니 뭐좀 자원이네 라게 말에 된데서 나게 나나 된데 요래 되냐 돈에 지벌이 담보 칭송해야 되냐 그래서.
So observing ethical discipline and the impeccability of ethical discipline is something that is very, very important for all the practitioners of the Dharma. The general ethical discipline that we all need to observe is the 10 disciplines, 10 fold virtuous path that is known as, refraining from those negativities of the body, speech, and mind, which enables one to take a rebirth take a high rebirth in high realm. If one is able to do that, Because without observing precepts, one will not be able to attain, not even high realms, will not be able to take a rebirth, even in high realms. It requires ethical discipline to take a rebirth, even in high realms. Because observing vows and precepts has a great benefit. And then if we think of other precepts, such as Bodhisattva's vows, Bodhisattva's precepts, and particularly of the precepts of the Vajrayana, or the tantric vows for the Vajrayana. If one takes the tantric vows, and even though that one is unable to engage in a profound practice of Tantrayana or the Vajrayana, by observing very strictly of vows and commitments of Vajrayana, even though one may not be able to engage in the profound practice of Vajrayana, it is to say that it is due to one's observation of vows and commitments, one will be able to attain the unified state of enlightenment in the Vajrayana. This is the term used in the Vajrayana. It's called Sungjuk, the state of unity. Will be attained in 16 lifetimes, even though one may have not. But if, on the other hand, if one has taken empowerments, taken all these precepts, and not being able to observe, vows and commitments, even though one may have spent years and years of retreat and practicing, one will not be able to gain any attainment. No cities will be attained. No cities will be accomplished. So therefore, observing precepts is a very important in all the vehicles, the vehicles, Lord vehicles, or the Bodhisattva vehicles, as well as Tantric vehicles.
다들 단대 측지 주보다 주지보 니가 되는 조사자 되네 중요 받으려야다 뉴몽라야 뉴몽 방야 되리샤 대 세나 유규차다 뇽레다 문배나게 되자 시당나 리다 소다 퇴발랑조나 왕단치위 잡아다 라
주지보라고 그러잖아.
안에 근데
주지를 맞아 중요해서.
중요하다.
그래서.
중요하자. 어디지도 다 수수주 뉴몬라 다제체는 대방단들이셔 되는마. 수수주 뉴몬 가르스나 다 수수기 노롱줄라서 봐. 직신라 지바당마도 야게 셋나. 제 아니 라나야 가래 rangi niba rangi yujugi rangi yoda junipa khasevina rangi rangla ya beijing ye yonro bo mangbo yona te pa beje le yarwa mila ya madon pasine pa beja susu niba de pa beja ge yo ani susu le ya yan yo den da chi khamen na ani yo don do che ge gyu ani kasogre rangi ta tajidi rangi ta lyoda longjola sobala chaba 아니 뇽레 스리다 뇽레다 레로데 타고도 뇽레 스리 좀발에 개베 잡아치발이야 아니 개바치발이야 가서 그래 야 쪼와메고 개베 잡아로 쪼와메바 디데기 뇽레 아니 나제 뭐베 나제 되자 시당 아니 다 나비디 릭톰보 인스니 나제지야로 뭐베 나제들이야 nga rikpe yakbo yinpe, rik thongpo yinsini nga jechiya. Ani nga su zikbo yinsa, yang su zebo yinsa yadabo tendegi nga jechiya rwa. 先了把通中切的，所以说这通过医生的先了通中切，我说这不有说这不有是的，这里钱的先了把养鸡就多交不多钱的，这里把通中切呀，然后我别的就老总有个人我推把也是吧，我老总有个人其他的到古巴这下是的先了把通中大呀，我别的老总有个人多钱的。现在朗做是的，我被老选也种种也是的，没几现在给不得做了呀，养把通中的呀，是吧？他往当期我是的怎么了呀？叔叔这不用着我的这个一笔呢，你提给我给那呀，没现在了吧？通中的呀，我的这个脚把赛的日给脚把，手给脚把，特别脚把，浪吹脚把，往当期被脚把是呢。我提起了呀，你叔叔生个那了，上路顶这几多呢？他展览性大不够的也是呢。我顶这这些。
So the next, the verse 11, is actually identifying all those negativities that one need to abandon. In fact, in the commentary it says, one should look at this as one's enemy, one's core enemy, as it says. Because those are the one that really becomes a strong impediment of our practice, our progression of our practice. And in fact, it becomes a hindrance for our development of our spiritual realizations. So therefore, one must identify those negativities and look at those negativities. Having been identified those negativities, one should look at them as one's core enemy, so that one need to defeat. And those are the enemy that we need to defeat. Those are the enemy that we need to have a battle with. Those are the enemy that we need to fight with in our day-to-day life. That's what it says. And then here, the verse here we read, and take on view as enemies, stinginess, guilt, pretense, lust, attachment, lethargy, false pride, lust, hatred, conceit, or over greatness of caste, physique, education, youth, or power. Right? So those are all the enemies. We need to look at those as one's enemy and try to get rid of that, because this will really become a hindrance for our development of spiritual practice. So, because now the stinginess, as you know, that it will prevent us from engaging in practice of generosity, and then the guilt is actually, you're actually gonna have a tendency of hiding or one's own faults, even though you may have done something bad, but you're not, letting others know, and you're just hiding it. And then there's a pretense, one is, there's a pretense that you, even though that you may not have such realizations or some kind of educations or qualities, that you actually pretend to have those and so on. And then attachment is something that we always look at as one's own enemy. Always, it's a very, very important attachment to one's positions, attachment to one's body, attachment to one's spouse, so on and so forth. Everything that is, we need to want to rid of. And then lethargy is one thing that really prevents us from engaging in practice. Lethargy, so indolence sometimes. It belongs to the category of laziness. And that really, laziness is the one thing, the lethargy or the indolence or the one thing that really prevents us from engaging in practice of Dharma. And then false pride. It is, again, you're not pretending to be a higher person or highly realized person, but you are thinking that you have those realizations. In reality, that you don't have it. You don't have it, but you think that you have those realizations and you know those, and then you just think that you yourself is someone who has gain some kind of realizations. That is what is meant by false pride. And then lust and hatred, definitely. Those are all need to be gotten rid of. And then conceit, over greatness of caste. One have very high caste, and we look down towards the lower caste. It's also a very, strong obstacle for one's practice, development in one's practice. And then one may have a very, strong pride with regard to one's physical body. If one has a, very strong, or one has a very attractive physical body and so forth, and one take great pride in it. We have this tendency. We, in fact, embrace pride with regard to one's physical body and so forth. But when it comes to the practice of Dharma, one should not, because this will become obstacles or the hindrance for one's development of spiritual practice. Then education, if one has education, and we look down to someone who doesn't have education, and then youth, one due to one's youth, and then we look at someone who is older than oneself. I mean, particularly the elderly individual, we look down to them, and instead of having, respecting and honoring them, we look down to them by thinking, but with it at the same time, we are not thinking of yourself very, very wide, very, carefully. Because if you are lucky enough to live long as they do, you also become the same thing. But we don't know whether you are lucky enough to be living a long life like them. So therefore, one should not look down to the elderly people. And then it says, then power. And that's the main thing that we always, when we think that you are powerful, and we do all kind of stuff, all kind of stuff. So therefore, all those need to be carefully identified and look at them as one's enemy, and then try to defeat them and gain a victory over them. And one will really become one would call this action of getting rid of those enemies can be identified as a heroic act of getting act of defeating our enemy.
어디 나는데 이 주숨 장가정도 세르나 유규 아니 차바 뇽레 뭐뱅가지 아니 되자 시다지 나유서네 세나 유규 차바 뇽레지 뭐뱅가지 되자 시다 어디지 안 되네 릭수 릭치비 잡아서 다들 릭치다다 릭통보이는 게마다 있는 가 릭치보이는 가 계치는 미신다는 통주다야 됐어요. 어다 대답에 대나기 단다 다대도 수수 셈나마냐 삼로지 봐도 정말 셈지로 어디도 정말 삼로된데 수수 셈나마 삼로된데 코인데 대도 정말 다 수수라 페마도 시라 페마도 그게 삼로 수수라이나 기후 매바 속에 미시나 기후 매바 속에 삼로지 선사 대 장모만들 선사 telle야 자신 따고 레스네 삼로 되내질리기 도나 셈되려야 자나신단에 바빵으로 했으니 공부들도 기본 대저 성분을 선물해서 하는 나랑서 대나시 삼로 되내지 생각난 내용도나 아니 대파 매봤어야 답시다고 그랬어.
This is how the Nagarjuna advised his friend King Surabhipata by saying that view all this as enemies, stinginess, guilt, pretense, attachment, lethargy, false pride, lust, hatred, conceit over greatness of caste, physics, education, youth, or power. All of this are the obstacle for one's practice. So therefore, just as Nagarjuna has advised his friend King Sulabhadra. We also follow this practice. We need to follow this practice. Directly, Nagarjuna has, suggested this practice towards his friend, but indirectly is presenting this practice to all of us who are suitable to follow this practice.
다들 디 지지 주순 받으리샤. 지지 주순 받에 바유 뒤진에 밤에 봐. 집에내서 투비까지 대해서 봐. 대외 규기 기초 변에도 그게 따도 바단 제버졌으네. 어디에 소자.
In the verse 13 here we read, the sage has proclaimed that caring is the mental state for the nectar of immortality, while not caring is the stain for death. Therefore, to boost your constructive dharma measure, you need to have a caring attitude, always through being appreciated.
다 바이오 버스는 가서래 다 르가 이순도 줘봐 취단 된 버스 그런 거나 지단 된 버스 그러면 아니 취 내세비나 취 최종 내세비나 취단 된 버기 르가 이순도 줘봐 야보체는 해야 되나 바이오 다 바메 버스도 지단 간에 세비는 지조도 자원이네만 된 거로 르가 이순도 줘봐 탐지 배디 뉴번나시 제되게 들어야 바메 봐 바이오보다 매버스네 디데지를 시작을 바이오버스도 출당 tumba체지 야보체는 지조도 tum바체는 야보 이텔리아 바단 템바스 양 최내 세비는 최단 tum바체는 되게 바단 템바 아니 최내 세비는 최단 미tum바체는 베디 팅게 견자체는 되게 되는 밤에 봐지 지조가는 이비나 그 지조도 미tum바체는 와 녀번나시 제대로 아는 밤에 봐 되는 바유보다 매봤어야 돼.
So here, Lord, the sage has proclaimed that caring is the mental state. So here it actually refers to a heedfulness, being very careful of what you're doing. That is what is meant by. And once one pay attention to what one is doing. Are we doing something that is, offensive to the general public, or something that we're doing something that is not offensive, something that is not really making with causing an upset to other individuals or the communities, then that is what we're doing. What one is actually being heedful of one's mind, and it is also known as conscientious and non-conscientious. That is what is also translated sometimes by, which is conscientious, and be conscientious of what you are doing. And if one is able to do that, then this will, benefit oneself as well as other beings.
어딘데 순서 바이오바데 아니 뒤지나시 뒤지 세야디 당하라도 치워메베 뒤지세야디 칼라라미나 아니 치야 바 가사 치리든 돈데 치야 요 말했을 텐데 그러 바이오바데 뒤지다라고 그랬어 가르에서는 바이오바데기 다르에 대보 용어를 나타내 바이오바데기 롱아 예수는 저 바이오바 전에 검제 대바데기 왕기 아니 되네 간소선은 산제 도야 그 걸 산제 그 보면 도야가 길로 좁아서 아니 뒤지도 지발에 치워미비 뒤지도 지발에 밤에 봤을 내위는 밤에 봐되게 아니 그 간소선을 롱아 예수 탐지 동해를 자느라 소수 롱아 예수 탐지 동해를 자네 동해기 내네 동해기 날네 아니 치고가 손자나야 아니 밤에 봐디 집에 내서 집에 내에서는 된데 두번 산제 그까지 그랬어.
So what it says now, again, the caring is the mental state for the nectar of immortality. The heedfulness or the conscientious is the nectar of immortality. So why the heedfulness will become nectar of immortality Because if one is able to be able to test the nectar, then one can gain immortality, immutable bliss, in other words. Similarly, if one is able to, if one is able to be hateful or be able to be conscientious, then it is similar to taking a nectar of immortality, because by doing that, one will refrain from engaging in negative deeds of the body and speech. Our engagement of negative actions of the body, speech, and mind is because of the lack of conscientious, because of lack of hatefulness. And if one is able to, observe, if one is able to have this hatefulness, and whenever we engage in any actions, this will become virtuous. And then eventually this virtuous activities will become a cause for one's high rebirth, liberation, and finally to the state of enlightenment. So that's why hatefulness is analogous to the nectar of immortality, whereas non-conscientious is not caring is a stand for death. It is because if one is not being very careful and not very being careful of what one is doing, not paying attention to one's actions of the body, speech, and mind, one engages in all sorts of negative deeds of the body, speech, and mind. And then this engagement of actions of the body, speech, and negative actions of the body, speech, and mind will then take us to the lower realms, and deeper and deeper to the lower realms. So that, therefore, it is analogous to not caring is always analogous to the stand for death.
Tende songsa ane dewe na asirwa, tende yunzi tende dewe na ane gebo deje sambu choji gewe che kongne kondo pewe nedo ane kubada jebe ane dado 바다 덴바주스네 지랑게 바이오가 제제 아니 저런 남유 저런 계단에 아니 바다 제바 나로 나스네 기부터 제성보라 되네 마 순선 주르샤.
So therefore Nagarjuna has stated that therefore it says to boost your constructive dharma measures you need to have a caring attitude always through being appreciative. That's all.
그치 더 샤샤무라.
That's all. So we'll stop here with this today.
So we should say the dedication prayers before we finish. Beginning with prayers on page 23 and 24, continuing with auspicious wishes on page 28. Jine Sade
Kewade Dena Roa Guna Nena Kebra Desu Sambra Ebe Nivo
Saji Uti
Chushe Mekora Drea Neji Nine Gemade Sade Shidu Mile Gwayi Rugu Nana Jina Jura Yanda Lamada Teme Chiki Bella Bonjoji Sadan Bandi Yone Razone Doji Changi Gogan Yoro Shosho Jena Mete Alwagande Yasta Yamini Uze Rabenji Nanga Tine Chuju Devana Loza Teme Dume Sakundi Jule Mese Aluni Yuru Kurve Shingansu, Pendan Deva Magunjue, Chere Sewa Dinze Yaso, Share Side Padu Dindu, Ore Jidra Jemada, Kundu Sampo Deya Dejide, Deda Kunji Jesu Dabo, Dewa Deda Tanje Todu. Sibe Jawa Tamje Gi, Mawa Kala Chodo Nawa, Taji Jebe Zawa Devu Jam, Sambu Juji Radu Moha Ji.